I don't ever refer to anybody as somebody that works for me. We all work for Oakdale Cotton Mills.
I like it down here. I do, I love it.
There's a certain radius around this mill that I believe everybody that lives within that radius have tried to work at Oakdale at least once.
A lot of good people down there, and still know most of the ones that I grew up with that are still living. So, you know, it's close-knit neighbors.
Cotton mill had to wait till the war was over, but they used this site for an arms manufactory. They made guns for the Confederate Army. At the close of the Civil War in 1865, they brought down the cotton machinery, and they also brought down a manager, Thomas Cook, for the plant. That was 1865, and the mill was still in operation.
Even during the Depression and the wars that we've had, the mill has never stopped running for any reason. Some of the other mills that we've heard that might have us beat on the time had fires or had something that stopped them, and they started back up, or even went under a different name later on with different owners.
It was always managed by one family, pretty much, the Ragsdale family, at least after the very beginning years. It wasn't a huge mill, but it was steady, kept a lot of people employed, built a mill village, which is still here today. The management saw to it that there was a church organized, that there was a primary school nearby for the very young children to go and at least learn their alphabets, I guess. It was a very paternalistic system.
You know, the winder's knot that they tie don't get tickled at me, but Grandma taught me that knot. And when you tie that knot, you use these two fingers right here. And you like put the thread this way and this way. And then you bring the thread up around here and back through like this and poke it through like this and pull it, and that knot won't ever come loose.
Go back to my great-grandfather, Will Young. He worked in the mill. And my grandfather and grandmother worked in the mill. And my dad worked in the mill. And then I worked in the mill. And on my mother's side, her mother worked in the mill, and she worked in the mill. And I went to work in the mill in 1956.
Well, my grandfather told me all these old stories and everything, and he told me all these things about the mill. And I used to kid him because he'd come home with all this dye on his arms and everything. And he'd say, "Oh, look what color I am today." And he was always joking with me about it.
Well, my mother started working there when she's 7 years old. Ida Mae Hill McGee. She said her daddy told her to go to work, so she went to work. She just wished she could go to school instead of having to work. And she said she looked out the window and wished she could get outdoors and play.
I came here when I was 6 years old, so I've been here 54 years. And I came to work here the day I turned 16. So I've been here about 45 years.
I came to work the day after my 16th birthday, so I've been here 31 years. And it's the only place I've ever worked.
And I remember some of the young people out here would take their dinner, we called it dinner then, whatever meal it was, and go into the mill where their father or mother was working, and the father and mother would take the meal and sit down.
While he eat, I run his job. in the opening room. That's when you open the bales of cotton and run them through the machines going to the lapper room. We tore them up and cleaned it. And so I did that while he was eating his lunch.
The child was not on the payroll, but they did that because their family knew that that was their future.
And I went to work at the cotton mill at the age of 16 years old. And they started me off $1.75 an hour. I thought I was in big money.
I went to work there when I was 15, went to sweeping the floor. And I worked the rest of the time with the machinist in the shop. We'd work 50 and 60 hours a week overhauling machines. I worked in the whole, all over the mill.
We worked from 6 to 2, and 2 to 10, 10 to 6. No break, nowhere, just them 3 shifts.
When I first went to work there, you couldn't see, you couldn't see a person 100 foot down because it's dusty and stuff.
The thing that hit me the first, I guess, the thing that made the greatest impression on me was actually the lint that was flying around in the air that was coming off the spinning frames. And of course the other thing was the heat. The temperature between those spinning frames probably got up to 110 degrees. You could actually stand at one end of a spinning machine and actually talk to someone on the other end. They could not hear you and you couldn't hear them, but you learned to read their lips.
It wasn't the cleanest work in the world, and it wasn't easy, it was hard, but it was an enjoyable experience. And I think most people enjoyed it.
All through the years, they air conditioned the place, cleaned it up, and it's like there wasn't no dust hardly at all in there. It was clean.
My father told me the story. They came in and tried to organize, and the employees went out to the gate and stopped them and told them that they didn't have any business in here because they weren't going to unionize because they felt like the mill was doing a good job of looking after them and they didn't need any outside help. And there was a little bit of violence, but it didn't last long. And the union left, and we hadn't heard from them since.
A union. There were some employers who did want it, and then some who did not want it, and then there was a battle there for a while. But they finally all straightened out, and it smoothed on out.
I think one of the things that I remember most about this mill, coming here working as a young person, before I had a thing to do with the management of it, was when I went out in the mill, if I was interfering with somebody's job, they took care of it. They didn't come to my daddy. And so I finally learned that this mill was just as important to everybody out there as it was to me, and sometimes more so.
One time Bill Ragsdale brought Billy down there. And Billy, and his daddy said, he's gonna help you. So he helped me work on the machine. We tore it down, cleaned it up, put it back together. And Billy was, he was young. And now he helped me, but when you got done, he left. He would leave. He didn't get out of there. And his daddy come around there once in a while and said, is he doing any good?
I started working in the summer of 1956. They said if I would go to college and take textiles, that they would pay my first year's tuition and room. And so I hadn't planned on going to college, but I went since it was going to be free first year. And I started off doing odd jobs, then I went on third shift pouring up bobbins. And then I went to school and worked in the summertime. And then I went to work full-time in 1959.
It was a policy at the mill, not a written policy, but just an unwritten policy, that anybody who had the aptitude to go to school, the mill would pay for their college.
Mr. Tom Ragsdale, met him one day and he asked me what I was going to do, and I told him that I wanted to go to college, and he said, well, he said, if you would like to work in the mill during the summer, you can do that and make some money to pay for your college expenses.
I'll never forget when my father died, the supervisors came up to my father's house and they were sitting in the yard. It was in July. And one of them looked at me and said, "What's going to happen to our meal?" It wasn't your meal or your daddy's meal or anything, it was our meal.
I've been in management and supervision for probably 25 years. Every week's different, and every day's different, so I'm never bored, and there's no telling what I might be involved with from one day to the next. And I think a lot of our employees are the same way. They're all cross-trained to where they run different machines.
Done a lot of different things here. I started in the twisting room, and then came in the winding room, was a fixer in the winding room.
And I went back pouring up bobbins, and then I became a fixer on automatic winders. And then I became a boss man on the second shift over the winders and twisting department.
I was in spinning, then I came to winding work part-time, then I went to boatman, now I'm back to winding again.
Pushed cans in the card room, then I went to the packing room, and from the packing to the office.
And then I went on the third shift and was supervisor over the whole mill.
I'm Jack of all trades.
When I first came here, you had to work here to live in the village. It was really a incentive for people to come to work, knowing that they could also get a house to live in and not have transportation costs living right near the mill. There's 33 houses, I believe. There might have been one more back when I first came, but over a period of time, we don't rent them all out anymore. Some of them need some repair. For the most part, the people that live in them now, most of them still do work here. Some of them don't, which is different than the way it used to be in the past.
It's kind of like a big family. We all lived in a company house. And what was amazing, when I first got married, you know how much rent I paid? 10 cents a week, a room. If we had 3 rooms, you paid 30 cents.
As I remember as a child, when the mill was really prospering and all the houses were full, all the houses had a vegetable garden in the back and a flower garden in the front, and they were just immaculate.
I had to work a lot in the garden, helping with all the canning, but we had always had plenty of food and plenty of love in our home.
And I know one year I picked, I'll never forget it, it was 13 bushels of potatoes that I picked up, and I got a knee-high orange for it. And of course that was a lot back then.
And I tell young people today, I said, you don't know what it was to be able to go to someone's house and just walk in and sit down at the supper table or dinner table and eat with them, spend a night with them. And it was just an open family in that area at that time. That's where you get the name Happy Hollers. Everybody was happy.
We lived beside the well. And we'd go up and get a wash tub full of water and bring it back and put it in the pot and build a fire around the pot. And that's how we washed in, wrung them out by hand. No washing machines back in them days.
We got a bathroom, I think it was 1948. We were the first one in the village that got one because we was the closest one to the well.
I'd bring in the wood and the coal, and of course I learned to cook on a wood stove. We had a well, I drew water out of the well.
The closeness of it, I guess, is my fondest memory, the closeness of people, and more or less like just one big family, and the way people looked after one another, the way people helped one another, and people sitting on the porch in the evening talking, and visiting one another and talking, and that was always a good thing, a big thing. Sitting on the porch in the afternoon, visiting the neighbors and talking to the neighbors.
They would bring mandolins, and they would bring banjos and 2 or 3 guitars and maybe a fiddle. But for years they had dances at our house and would go to other people's houses and dance. My mother always went to play the piano.
As I look back now on that time, that was probably the most satisfying time of my life.
There's something precious down in that area. Of course, they've let it run down now, but it's something precious.
And the first job I ever had was working at the store when I was 14, bagging groceries and carrying groceries out.
Just like an ordinary store. I mean, it's had a counter over on this side, a counter on that side. You walked through the middle and had a potbelly stove about 2/3 of the way back. And they kept drinks and candy and stuff on this side, and shoes and stuff on this side, and groceries back toward the back, flour and feed and all that kind of stuff.
You could go to the store and get a 3-cent drink and a bolster, which was a chocolate about 2 inches, for a penny. So a nickel would buy a 3-center and 2 of those bolsters, which I bought pretty often.
The neighbors had all kind of credit down there, but the company didn't take it out. I mean, you had to pay it yourself. It wasn't a company store.
My father ran the Oakdale store for his uncle, Frank Merritt. And so, to me, going down there and getting crackers out of the Cracker Barrel and getting candy, and then at night, Daddy coming home and bringing us ice cream, that was my experience of Oakdale neighborhood.
And you know the old saying that everything is different across the tracks, you know, on the other side of the tracks, which was considered here.
Most of the people who held management positions in Oakdale Mill lived in the town. The workers lived in the mill village, or in the approaches on Oakdale Street, Oakdale Road. Everybody was friendly. There was a lot of goodwill between everybody. Of course, there were tensions too, and I think that everyone stressed to their children that everybody was the same. You don't look down on anybody, you don't make fun of anybody, and yet we know that there were instances where, for instance, school children threw pennies at the mill kids or called them lint heads.
My dad was the carpenter for the mill. He did repairs on the houses in the mill village, and he did repairs for the mill, in the mill, and for whatever they wanted him to do. That's what he did. And my mother worked in the mill, but I don't know what she did.
I was born in Oakdale, second of 5 children, and we lived in a little house right on the river, the far corner down in Oakdale. And I think back then it probably a 3-room house, if I'm not mistaken.
It was built for the superintendent of Oakdale Cotton Mill, and Mr. Mac McClure was the first one to move into it. I went to the front porch and took the corn, and Miss McClure would always swing with me in her swing, but I didn't go in the house. I don't remember going in it.
I worked at the post office in Jamestown, and so I got to see a lot of people. And the boy that took care of the house for Miss Hodgen told me one day that she was going to sell the house and was taking bids on it. And I couldn't wait to get home from work that day and tell Tony, because I knew he had always loved this house.
Well, every time we drive by here, I would look up at this house, you know, thinking was about, you know, what a great house that is. You know, somebody rich must live there.
It had run down, and they wanted somebody here that was just everyday people that were not, you know, rich or had a big high position, you know, in the mill or anywhere else.
I always loved it. I look at the yard, think about how big it looked, you know, compared to ours, and how I loved the big porch around it, but I never had any idea that I would ever live here.
And my nephew was fortunate enough to be able to buy it. And now I can go anywhere I want to in it.
my dad grew up around here. They were raised on Oakdale Road, and he told stories about when they were small, they came down here and they got scraps from Oakdale and made toys, and this yo-yo is one of the toys that they made. This is made from the bottom of one of the bobbins, but this has also got Oakdale twine on it. What Oakdale threw out was their treasure, so to speak.
Made up our games, and some of the games we played, hide and seek, tag. We played a lot of baseball. So, you know, we just enjoyed doing the basic things that I think some of the children today really miss out on.
We played what we call peg, and played soccer ball, baseball. Oakdale had a team at one time, back in the late 30s and 40s.
We had some really important employees that went to professional baseball teams. We had Pepper Young, who was pitcher, was at Pittsburgh. He's in the record books. And Pepper died, he was shipping clerk back here in the back. And because they didn't make any money when they played baseball. And some people didn't play professional, but they were real well-known ball players in the industrial leagues, because all the mills had teams.
My Uncle Cleet would put the sides on the truck that he drove cotton up from a mill, and let all us youngers could get in it, and grown people too, and they'd take us to the ball games.
I guess I was about 14 when the mill formed that girls softball team. And we were so proud of our red and white uniforms. We couldn't wait to get those on and go play.
We hunted all the time, back when the hunting season was in.
We used to set rabbit traps and catch rabbits and take 2 nails and hang their hind legs up and skin them and eat them. And we fished a lot. My
daddy built us a boat to go out on the river where we could fish, and we'd catch fish, and we also would fish from the banks of the river.
We used to fish about every day. Summertime, we swim every day.
We had 3 swimming holes in the deep river. One of them was the girls' swimming hole. We weren't allowed there. One of them was the boys' swimming hole. That's where we swam. The other was Mr. Moore. He had a land up to the river. We called that the Moore's swimming hole.
Bill Ragsdale built a real nice community center, and it had a great big fireplace in it, and it was built for the entire community that lived down there in the mill village.
It was a beautiful place, and it was, I was old enough to be in the Boy Scouts then. We used to meet there, and then they would have movies every Friday evening and every Friday night, and anybody could come that wanted to. And every Christmas, the mill would give us, the community, a big Christmas party up there, and give all the kids a present. And they'd have a big old Christmas tree about 15, 20 foot tall. And it was a lot of things went on there.
It was a beautiful place, but then it burnt down, and we really missed it after it burned down.
It's the oldest continuously running mill in the country. And I think it's just a part of history that's gone now, especially in the industrial times. And of course, the textile business was in England. It left England, went to New England. Then it left New England, came south, and now it's left south, gone to China.
Last time I talked to Billy, he said about all he's doing is breaking even. And you know, they used to do real good business.
A lot of our materials is going into small lots and various types of end products. So even the ones that over the period of time that go away, there's usually something else that takes its place. We're not doing as much as we used to, but what we do is critical to the people we sell it to. So we feel like, as far as we can see out, we're in pretty good shape. I believe we'll run as long as there's business to be had.
Well, I think at some point in time it's going to be a real estate project. I mean, it just, unless we're working on some things now that from a competitor that closed, and they brought some stuff to us. And you know, we may survive it. I mean, there's always going to be a niche somewhere. It just depends on if there's enough money in the niche to keep your business going. But we're right at a break even now. We don't make a lot of money, and we don't give any raises or anything anymore. But at the end of the year, if we got a little, we make sure everybody has a little piece of it. And so we're going to try to hang on as long as we can, and we're always looking for something new to do, whether it's textile related or something else, but so we can keep the people working.
There has always been a family connection at Oakdale, from the president down through management, through the employees.
When you look at that village in itself, it was almost like its own society. And the people were so close. Everyone knew everyone else.
You were always welcome in anyone's home at any time, day or night. We didn't lock the doors, and we always had a lot of fun.
I wouldn't take anything for growing up in the Oakdale Cotton Mill Village, because it taught me respect for other people and how to treat other people, and that material things don't mean near as much as love in your home.